Introducing Oakley Meta Vanguard, the new performance AI glasses designed for athletes with an action-ready ultra-wide camera, powerful open-ear speakers, and built-in Meta AI that syncs with your Garmin devices for real-time insights while you train. Take your performance to the next level with Oakley Meta Vanguard. Athletic intelligence is here. Learn more on meta.com.
Welcome to the Chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 208 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You have heard him on the Saturday morning spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network, even though I forgot to post it this Saturday to the podcast feed. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. Mark, how are you doing today?
Doing well. We're taking Saturday off this week. I got a wedding and then something the night before as well. So just a crazy weekend upcoming here. So one Saturday, this should be the only one we take off this football season, but no Saturday morning spread this Saturday. But next Saturday, trying to get a special guest, working on it still. So had Anthony DeBundo on from The Ringer last week, and he's a Colts fan. We went through a lot of stuff about the Colts and kind of who is a real contender. And we'll talk about on the last game of this week, I planted a big flag on my show on a team that I think is a true Super Bowl contender. And we'll talk about it when we get to the midnight Monday Night Football game, basically, or I should say 10 p.m. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, you might talk about it. I went to bed because 10 o'clock on a Monday night is insane. But, I'm okay with the dual Monday night games. Let's just kick one off at 7 and one off at 8 or something like that. Let the people choose is what I'm saying. You can't be starting a second game at 10 o'clock. That's crazy talk.
I feel like the correct way to do it is 7 and 9. If you back it up to 9 o'clock and you start the other one at 7 o'clock, at least there is a little bit of a gap. The game probably starts around halftime. Maybe you go 8:30 even, but yeah, I think 10 o'clock is a choice.
Yeah, I'm in favor of having less games crammed into the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday.
Same.
But I think you can play two games at the same time on Monday night. I wouldn't even hate two games on Sunday night, but I get it's the game of the week on Sunday night. Anyways, enough schedule talk. Maybe not enough yet. Brett Eclipse says he's enjoying this Tuesday night schedule. Throwback to the old days when Mark and I originally started on Tuesday nights.
That's true.
I actually prefer being able to do it on Monday, so it's a little closer to the games. It just hasn't worked out for me that way the last few weeks, but glad people are liking it.
I think so. There was a comment, don't the double Monday nights end at some point in the year? I think that was it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, they don't do them every week. There's just a couple of them.
I think that was the last one. Maybe I heard that somewhere and they were wrong, but I believe that's the case.
Yeah. Well, speaking of games we are a long ways removed from, let's briefly talk about Thursday night football. So you get the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals win this game 33-31. And my top takeaway from this game is that Mike Tomlin was right to be upset about the Joe Flacco trade, because he lit up the Steelers to the tune of 342 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Chase Brown got going a bit in this game too, which I know is good for you, Mark. You're a big Chase Brown guy, but notches 108 yards on only 11 carries. Jamar Chase had 16 receptions for 161 yards and a touchdown, while T. Higgins had 6 for 96 and a touchdown. On the Steelers side, Aaron Rodgers threw for 4 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks, but Jaylen Warren had 16 carries for 127 yards. It really feels like the Steelers finally got a good quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers finally got healthy and got stuck with the version of the Steelers defense that finally failed. So we'll keep an eye on that throughout the season, but just not the same Steelers defense we've been used to over the years.
I don't have much to say on this game. All I feel like this game did was it ensured to me that the AFC North champion will probably be one of Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson. It's just whoever gets back and gets it right faster would be what I would assume there. And the safe assumption's probably more Lamar than on Burrow there, since Lamar's coming back this week, where Burrow has a long while until he's back The Bengals also are they 3-3? 3-4. Okay, so they didn't have their bye. For some reason, I thought they had a bye last week. 3-4. So yeah, I think if the Steelers could have got to 5-1, then it would have started to get really, really hard because the Bengals would be 2-5 with Burrow a long way away. The Ravens would still be a one-win team with Lamar coming back this week. 5-1 would have felt like a commanding lead in a way that it's still a commanding lead, but last week I was pretty confident that the Steelers would win that division. I'm not as confident after that Thursday.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get on to the Sunday games then. And let's go Los Angeles Rams at the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Cool.
The Rams just kill them 35-7. And this was a Rams team without Puka Nacua, without much of a run game. They had 89 yards on 29 carries, and they still managed to bulldoze the Jaguars. Matthew Stafford threw for 5 touchdowns, but only 182 yards. The Jags actually outgained the Rams, 358-21, but they came up 0 of 2 in the red zone, while the Rams were 4 of 4. The big development in this game was that the Rams used 13 personnel on 24 of their 59 snaps. Mark, how many snaps of 13 personnel do you think Sean McVay has used in the last 4 years combined?
Less than the number you just gave me, I'm going to assume.
6.
Yeah.
So just totally, people are like, hey, you can't change a game plan that much week to week. Don't tell Sean McVay that. It's just crazy numbers there. The Jags offense was anemic. Lawrence had misfires. Receivers had drops. The O-line was bad. 7 players had at least 3 pressures on Lawrence. Braden Fisk had 8 pressures. Lawrence was sacked 7 times. Travis Hunter finally broke out, I guess, but it was in the second half of a game they were trailing by 4 scores when he caught his first touchdown. But he did end with 101 receiving yards and a touchdown. And so the Jags have now dropped 2 in a row, and they head into a much-needed bye, searching for any kind of an answer.
Yeah, my take on this game, again, it has nothing to do really with the game. I'd like to congratulate the Indianapolis Colts on winning the AFC South. After watching the Jags in an island game in London and watching the Texans in an island game on Monday night. And then obviously what the Colts did as well factors in. But the Colts are wrapping that division up early, I think. But man, I don't know if I'll be as wrong about a game as I was about this one all year long. I picked the Jags to win. I thought, they had figured out the London travel as an organization. They've historically been pretty good against the spread in London. The Rams had a crazy travel plan going to London where I don't know, Shane, if you want to elaborate on that. And I know that was a big talk. I don't know if you saw any. Did you see that stuff about their travel?
Didn't they go over like way in advance?
No, they went over like the night before and left immediately after. So now people think that no one's ever done that before, I guess. So people think that might be what these teams try to do now, where they're just basically spending no time over there. I don't know. But but the biggest thing was that Puka was out for this game, and I've been talking all year about how important I've thought Puka is to that offense. I really thought the offense was going to struggle. That was not the case. Shocking result to me. I bet the Jags. They're one of my favorite picks of the week. And it was basically over by 9:45 a.m.
Yeah, I feel like it was reasonable for me to expect Kyron Williams to have a good game for fantasy purposes with Puka Nacua out, and that didn't materialize. And I was like, they're winning big. Maybe they'll start pumping carries now. Nope, it just didn't go my way, but not much did this week in that regard. So I digress. Let's move on to Chicago, where not much went the Saints' ways either, as they lose 26-14. The Bears defense intercepted Spencer Rattler 3 times. They also strip sacked him, and so he ends up with 4 turnovers on the day. The Bears jump out to an early 20-0 lead, due in large part to those turnovers. The Saints were able to pull it back to a 14-20 game, but 2 of their final 3 drives ended with interceptions. And my biggest takeaway for the Saints in this game is, and they should have done this already, but they need to deal Alvin Kamara. He's playing no role on this team. He had like 11 carries for 30 yards, and maybe he's just washed, but
He said no.
He said no?
He doesn't want to get traded. He wants to be a Saint for life.
I'd trade him anyways, but kudos to him, I guess. But from a team build, which the Saints handle nothing from a team building perspective the way you should. So I'm sure they won't actually look into it, but that's a move that would make a lot of sense. On the Bears side, after starting 0-2, the Bears have won 4 in a row right now. Mark, when do you think the last time the Bears won 4 games in a row was?
Did they do it that one trip? They double doink year?
I think was that 2018?
Yeah,
2018. So Ben Johnson in his 6th game did something the Bears haven't done in 8 years. Win 4 games in a row. And the running game was good again. DeAndre Swift continues to be on a heater, 124 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries. Kyle Monangai had 81 yards and a touchdown on 13 carries, which I know, I don't know, have you ever been on a show with Chucks, or do you follow him on Twitter?
I haven't been on a show with him, but I follow him.
Okay, I remember having him on for a different show talking about draft stuff, and he was really big on Kyle Monangai. So good week for Chucks. A good follow on Twitter, by the way, if you're looking for a running back guru. But any thoughts on this game, Mark?
Yeah, it's all Ben Johnson. The Chicago Bears, fun fact, the only team in the NFL that has scored 21 plus in every game that they've played, which is not a stat that you'd normally think of. But they've won 4 straight games. Like you mentioned, the running game really has stepped up. Their running backs combined for 33 carries for 216 yards. So that's kind of that's the Ben Johnson offense at work there. They have not spent a lot of capital in terms of money or draft on that position. We criticized them at times this year when the running game couldn't get going early, but that's not the case now. The running game has really stepped up and risen to the occasion. Now, Chicago's a brutal, not upcoming as much. They kind of have an easy upcoming stretch after this trip to Baltimore this week, where you get the Bengals, you get the Giants, the Vikings, the Steelers at home. But man, the close to their season is absolutely brutal. Their last 6 games at Philly, at Green Bay, Cleveland, not as bad, Green Bay, at San Fran, Detroit. They really, really closed the year on a tough schedule. The Bears need to keep stacking these wins in the interim while they're not playing the top teams in the NFC, most of which on the road, if they want to kind of compete for that 6-7 seed in the NFC. But props to Ben Johnson. People wanted to crap on him early when it wasn't working, and they lost week 1 and they collapsed in week 1. Made 1 or 2 decisions that I think have been questionable, and they've played a lot of island games, and Caleb hasn't looked perfect at times, even if he has developed, I'd say, at times. But having said all that, like I said, they scored 21 plus in every game, and the running game has really improved. The O-line has really improved. We've won 4 straight games. Here we are talking about the Bears as a potential playoff team.
Yeah, I would love for them in week 18 to knock off Detroit, and it cost Detroit the 1 seed. I would love that so much.
Well, that would have to... Detroit's going to be playing for the 5 seed.
All right. We'll see. Who do you have as the 1?
I think
you got the Packers still.
I still like Green Bay to win that division. The one interesting factor, I was going to just say Green Bay has the tiebreaker because they won in week 1. That's not going to matter because the tiebreaker is irrelevant because of Green Bay's tie.
Oh, yeah.
Unless Detroit ties a game, which is...
Or Green Bay ties another game.
It shouldn't come into effect in terms of the tiebreaker because of that. I would still lean Green Bay's way.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's keep going. Let's go to Cleveland, where Miami just gets embarrassed by the Browns, 31-6. Tua threw 3 interceptions for the 2nd straight week before taking a seat down 31-6 in the 4th quarter. And Quinn Ewers threw for half the yards that Tua did in the game in 2 possessions. There's nothing to talk about with the Dolphins. They're terrible and there's no way out. So welcome to draft season. I don't know what to say about the Dolphins. And for the Browns, I'm not really sure there's anything to talk about either. When you play a team that's as bad as the Dolphins, their defense played well, or maybe the Dolphins are just terrible. Quinshon Judkins has to be the main takeaway. He had 3 rushing touchdowns, but it was only 84 yards on 25 carries. So the touchdown totals are nice, but not the most efficient game. A lot of his rushes came from jumbo sets. So with the 6th offensive lineman, he had 15 carries for 69 yards and 3 touchdowns when 6 O linemen were on the field. And the Browns used that on 41% of their plays. We got the Rams running 13 personnel. We got the Browns just putting 6 offensive linemen on the field. I don't even know what's happening in the NFL anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up some numbers here to try to make my argument. And I know it's not going to be a popular one, so I'm already kind of trying to get ahead of it here. This isn't Mike McDaniel's fault, guys. Like, I'm seeing a lot of Mike McDaniel's jokes out there, and people crapping on Mike McDaniel, people joking about the pants, people joking about the press conferences. And I do think part of him, it does seem like, has just like emotionally detached from the situation because he probably knows he's getting fired. He's 500 in his career at Miami. And if Tua is as bad as I think he is at this point, and a lot of people think he is, I think being 500 with the fact that Tua he has been his quarterback for a lot of that, or has forced him to play a backup quarterback for a lot of that, I think is relevant. And you look at Chris, the person who should be getting the flack is Chris Greer, who has been the GM for a decade now for the Dolphins. Shane, have the Dolphins sustained any level of success enough for the GM to be justified in having his job for a decade?
No.
That's the bigger problem. Mike McDaniel got hired in 2021 or 2022. Like, Mike McDaniel is not the Dolphins' problem. The Dolphins' problem is the GM, Chris Greer, who's been in the organization for 25 years, and Stephen Ross, the owner, who's a bozo and allegedly tried to pay to lose games at one point, like not in that distant past. So people want to crap on McDaniel. It's been on my radar a little bit lately. I think Mike McDaniel's going to rehab his image and get a head coaching job probably in 5 years, and hopefully he takes the right one because I think he's still a really good coach.
Remember when Brian Flores got fired because he said that Tua wasn't good enough to build a franchise around? Really makes you think.
So Brian Flores got screwed 100% in that situation. I will say, I do hope Brian Flores learned some like interpersonal skills if he ever does get a chance.
Yeah.
At head coaching again. And obviously Tua, he can feel the way he can about Tua, and Tua did lead the NFL in passing yards like 2 or 3 years ago. So like there was
that is a Mike McDaniel stat.
I agree. No, I agree with you, but like Mike McDaniel was able to extract value out of Tua. They won 11 games the one year. Like he was able to extract, like Brian Flores was benching him every other game for Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick wasn't a winning strategy either. So it's like, I've seen a lot of that too, where like Brian Flores redemption arcs, and I agree with it. And I'm on record. I think I said it on this show last year, but I think you could argue that Brian Flores as a coordinator last year had a more impactful coordinator season than we've ever seen, because that Vikings defense is not talented. And even still, I think you saw it in the Eagles game this week. If you just go through the defense talent name by name, they're not a top 20 defense in talent. And over the last 2 years now, they've been a pretty darn good defense. So tangent there, but I had nothing to say about the Browns. I don't think this was about the Browns. This game was about the Dolphins.
Yeah. I do think it's fair to point out the culture that has developed in Miami, and that Mike McDaniel's ultimately responsible for that. And you can go back to Vic Fangio with the defense there, and how everybody hated a guy that we know is a good defensive coordinator and coordinated a good defense there that collapsed immediately when he left. And we can go to Tua's comments and things like, so there's a lot of cultural things that Mike McDaniel should be held accountable for, but only being able to take Tua so far isn't one of those things. I mean, I remember saying when they signed Tua to that contract extension, I said, oh, so they're firing Mike McDaniel in 2 years because you're not going to win football games paying Tua that. And then you get Tyreek Hill gets hurt, and it all snowballs from there because it's a very specific offense that has to work a very specific way with no hitches, because Tua's just going to throw the ball where he's told it should be open, and it doesn't matter if there's a guy there or not. Anyways, talked a lot about the Dolphins for a team I didn't really have anything to say about other than welcome to draft season. Let's keep rolling here. Let's go New England at Tennessee. New England wins 31-13. The Patriots defense gave up 3 scoring drives on their first 4 possessions. So you get the interim head coach bump. Unfortunately for the Titans, did not last the whole game. After that, the defense clamped down for the Patriots, allowing only 97 yards on the Titans' final 6 possessions and forcing a fumble, an interception, a turnover on downs, and scoring a touchdown of their own. My biggest takeaway from this game is just that Drake May is so good. He is so good. I feel infinitely justified for having him as high as I had him in that draft now. 21 to 23 passing for 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 62 yards. He had 24.4% completion percentage over expectation. He ranks 3rd in the NFL in scrambling yards this season, Mark. Obviously Lamar's been hurt, but Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels has been hurt, but all these mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, Drake May is 3rd in scrambling yards. He is carrying a woefully under-talented offense, and Patriots fans should be very excited about the head coach that they have and the franchise quarterback that they have, because I think the Patriots are headed to be good for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just picking situations that it'd be fun to be a fan of going forward, New England has to be high on that list, and part of that is just how insanely easy that their schedule is. They have 5 wins. Tell me if they're going to lose any of these games, Shane. I'm going to skip through the ones that are tougher, but I'm just going through the easy ones. They have Browns at home. I think that's a win.
Win.
Jets at home. I think that's a win. Bengals on the road. Probably still in the Flacco era.
Win.
The Giants at home.
Win.
The Jets on the road.
Win.
The Dolphins at home.
Win.
That's 11 wins.
That's 11, yeah.
Without talking about the Falcons at home, which they'll be favored in, I think. At Tampa, they won't be a huge underdog in that. Buffalo at home, they already beat Buffalo on the road.
Tampa might not be able to field a football team by then.
That's true. And then at Baltimore at the end of the year, we'll see what happens with Baltimore. That could be, a really good Baltimore team rounding into form, or that could be a Baltimore team maybe in a bit of a gap year. So, we could be talking about a 1 seed in New England with the way that Drake May's playing, with Mike Vrabel. This is sincerely, one of the teams, I think maybe the most exciting situation going forward in the NFL because of what Drake May is. Taking out, teams that have Josh Allen or Lamar or Mahomes or Burrow even, although I'd rather be the Patriots than the Bengals going forward for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But it's sad to say for the people who hate the Patriots, but maybe this is a weird thing when
I don't hate the Patriots now that Belichick's gone.
For me, it was Brady more than Belichick even. And so Brady and Belichick being gone, as soon as that happened, Drake May is a whole new thing. I liked Drake May in the draft. I'm rooting for Drake May to be better than Jaden.
I like Mike Vrabel.
I like Mike Vrabel. Yeah, I'm. And by the way, this was an easy game. They were 7-point favorites. It's at the worst team in football, maybe, or a bottom 3 team in football at the very least. But what I will say is we see all the time where the fired coach bounce game happens, where the team kind of comes out fired up. Either they were embarrassed by the coach being fired or they're fighting for whoever the interim guy is. And I did say, I think when we talked about, I think it was last week, I was like, I don't think Mike McCoy
was the wrong week to do it.
I said it was the wrong week to do it, and I also said that Mike McCoy wasn't a fire up the guys guy. I feel like you want to get a defensive coordinator, a defensive position coach, a linebacker coach, a Dan Campbell was an interim guy in Miami years ago. That's the type of guy you want to get, the position coach who the players will run through a wall for. So, and I did not think that was going to be Mike McCoy, and I think I was right there. Props to New England for showing up to this spot and not showing up flat to a team that they did come out to play early. Tennessee stayed in this game early, where New England kind of blew them out once the game got going. But New England, Vrabel wasn't going to let them show up flat in his revenge game.
Yeah. All right, let's keep rolling to Kansas City. Mark, there was just a lot of terrible football this week.
Time out. With that, I forgot the stat. With that win, Mike Vrabel has now passed the amount of wins that the Titans have had since firing him in 2023.
Nice. Mike Vrabel revenge game.
Yeah.
We said we were ending revenge games for players. We never said anything about coaches.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to Kansas.
Timeout.
Oh my gosh. Stop it. No more. You're out of timeouts. You can't call back-to-back timeouts. That's a 15-yard penalty.
If you saw the Kirby Smart situation a couple weeks ago where he said he was clapping, but there was a timeout, and that was a disaster. We have another coach revenge game in a game we already talked about. I forgot to bring it up.
Okay.
Ben Johnson let Dennis Allen get the game ball because they beat the Saints. And Dennis Allen said, sometimes you're not good enough somewhere that you can be good enough elsewhere with a great, I don't know, he said some dumb coach thing, but Dennis Allen gave some shade to the Saints as if the Saints didn't keep Dennis Allen for far too long anyway. Whatever. I thought that was funny though.
I'm trying to look back now. I want to go look at his record.
Oh, he's got one of the worst coaching records in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, it was, what was it, 2002 to 2004 in New Orleans? Yeah.
22 to 24.
Okay, 7-10, 9-8, 2-7.
And that helps his all-time record, by the way, if you include 4-12,
0-4 in Oakland. Yeah. I don't know if you get to throw shade at an organization for getting fired at 2-7.
It's like,
but
yeah, you're a defensive coordinator, dude. Like, you're not a head coach.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to say, Mark?
No, I'm out of timeouts.
Okay, out of timeouts. We will go then to Kansas City.
Ugh.
They beat, there's a lot of games evoked that this week. Like, I legitimately found myself at some points being like, I don't even want to watch any of these games. Just not a good week matchup-wise. But the Chiefs beat the Raiders 31-0. Geno Smith was terrible. There was a span of 30 minutes and 58 seconds of game time where he had 0 completions. Which actually does sound worse than it was since the Chiefs were grinding out long drives, but still. He was benched for Kenny Pickett, who then fumbled his first snap. So if you're wondering how things are going in Las Vegas, they benched their quarterback for a backup quarterback they traded for who fumbled his first snap. Meanwhile, their first-round pick got 6 carries in the game for 21 yards. So that's Las Vegas in a nutshell. For the Chiefs, Mahomes was awesome. Throws for 286 and 3 touchdowns. He had 206 yards in the first half before the game was over, and the offense just coasted, but I'm going to go with Brett Eclipse here that he said the Raiders are absolutely pathetic. Can we just skip talking about them? I am good with that. I got nothing else to say about this game.
The Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, unfortunately. It's just where we are as a society. Mahomes is going to win MVP. We're just we rewind the clock 5 years. I don't know what happened, but here we are. And I want to give the Chiefs credit for something. Well, first of all, this is maybe the worst performance in the history of the NFL from the Raiders in this game. They had 3 first downs. It's just, if you just read their drive chart, it's punt, 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 end of half, punt, bounce, punt, fumble, punt, end of game. It's just very depressing. But I don't even want to talk about the Chiefs defense. I don't know what's real or fake about it or talk about the Raiders at all. What I will say is I'm giving the Chiefs credit for giving Brashard Smith a chance in this game. 14 carries, 5 catches. I think the Chiefs realize, I know Kareem Hunt got banged up in this game too, so that probably played a factor. But giving him 19 touches, to me, that makes it seem like they probably had some plan to use him going into the game anyway. Hunt got banged up. I don't know if he's going to play next week. Pacheco's running for 4 yards a carry, which is way below what he used to be able to run for when I was calling him overrated 3 years ago. And Brashard Smith's the guy who they took late in day 3. He was a guy I liked in the draft, a pass catcher out of SMU. And that's what I think he'll be most valuable as in that role. I don't know how many games I expect him to ever get 14 carries in, but props to the Chiefs for being like, Pacheco and Kareem Hunt are simply not good enough. Let's try Brashard Smith. I think he's the most talented running back in that running back.
The Raiders ran 30 offensive plays.
It's a joke.
That's the shortest. That would be the shortest film I've ever watched. 95 total yards.
Because I was looking for some of that info, did you mention Rashee Rice?
No.
So Rashee Rice is back, 7 catches, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was the most obvious thing in the world that the Chiefs were going to like make sure he scored at least one touchdown, if not more than that, and like give him a statement game and be like, see, Rashee Rice is back. We have a wide receiver one. And by the way, guess what? I think they're right. I think he is. I think he's a stud. And now they just have a stud next to Worthy. You know, he worked in a couple other guys while they were banged up and out for suspension. Kelsey had a 44-yard catch in this game, which I think was his longest in like 2 or 3 years or something crazy. So the Chiefs are so back, it's sickening.
Yeah.
They play Buffalo next week, though. That'll be fun.
That will be fun. Okay, Carolina at the Jets. Speaking of more bad games, Carolina wins 13-6. The Jets lost their second straight game in which they allowed fewer than 14 points. That has never happened before in NFL history. Justin Fields got benched at halftime after a 6-for-12 passing performance and taking 3 sacks. He got replaced by Tyrod Taylor, who was even worse, tossing 2 interceptions and taking 3 sacks himself. Bryce Young left this game with an injury as well, so 4 quarterbacks threw passes in this game. But the Panthers' defense stood tall and they sealed the game. Derek Brown had a pair of sacks. Nick Scorton had 1.5 sacks and 6 pressures. J.C. Horn had 2 interceptions of Tyrod Taylor, including an incredible one-handed pick in the end zone late in the third quarter. I think the only meaningful thing to come out of this game is that Bryce Young's injury is a high ankle sprain. So he's already out for 1 week, but it's probably likely he'll miss 2 or 3 games.
And if with Bryce Young out and with Carolina somehow with a winning record here, I am begging Carolina. I understand that you paid Chuba Hubbard. I understand that you thought he was your starter coming into the year. You have something special happening with Rico Dowdle. I don't know what's happening to Rico Dowdle that's made him one of the best running backs in football. He wasn't as good in this game, 17 carries for 79 yards. Still 4.6 yards per carry, which is incredibly respectable. He's averaging 5.6 yards per carry. That was above 6 before this game. Whereas Chuba comes back in this game, 2.2 yards per carry. He gets 14 carries to Dowdle's 17. Let Dowdle be the guy. It was very clear in those 2 weeks that he was what we've never seen Chuba come close to what Dowdle was doing in those games. So let Rico cook. That's my advice to the Carolina Panthers in the time that Bryce Young is missing. And my advice to the New York Jets is, try to find some dirt on Woody Johnson. It doesn't seem like it would be that hard to find, and make him sell the team Donald Sterling with the Clippers. If you're a Jets fan, I think that's your final hope. I think Woody Johnson owning the team will forever preclude you from being a serious organization.
As a totally unbiased fantasy football owner, yeah, let Rico cook.
Yeah. I thought you were going to talk about Justin Fields.
Justin Fields won't start another game for me.
Yeah, big swing and miss by me in general with liking the Jets this offseason to be competitive, with liking Justin Fields to be a good fantasy player. Justin Fields, every other year that he had started football games, had been a top 6 quarterback in fantasy points per game in those seasons. I should have realized the Jets are the Jets and they're going to jet. And that's just simply what it is. Also, Aaron Glenn is just deeply incompetent. Deeply incompetent. What Nick Sirianni did at halftime to go into the halftime in the second half was so incredibly frustrating, that you're on the 40-yard line and you don't make an attempt and you just let the clock run out. Aaron Glenn has now done that 3 times, except has been further on the field than Nick was. He's been like at the 50 each time, and has not tried another play to get a first down, to take a field goal, has not tried a Hail Mary. This has happened multiple times to Aaron Glenn. Happened in the London game. He came out and said, "That's on me, won't happen again." And then it happened again on Sunday going into halftime, where he just threw his hands up, took his headset off, and walked to half with the ball at like the 50 with timeouts in his pocket.
Yeah.
And Aaron Glenn is a one and done coach if I've ever seen one before.
Yeah. Well,
sorry, but his job is spoken for unless he gets a job. I didn't realize this. Aaron Glenn's never in Detroit. He never coached a top 18 defense in Detroit. His peak finish as a defense was last year at 19. And Kelvin Shepard, we'll talk about Detroit when we get there on Monday night. I think he might be a better coordinator than Aaron Glenn was.
Well, speaking of incompetent teams in New Jersey that called themselves New York, Man, we get into the afternoon slate and we watch the Giants blow a 19-0 lead going into the fourth quarter. They lose 33-32 to Denver. So they led by 19 going into the fourth quarter, scored 14 in the fourth quarter, and still lost as their defense just collapsed and gave up 33 points. A Jackson Dart interception and a 3-and-out gave the Broncos a chance late, and they took a lead with under 2 minutes to go. But the Giants responded with a 7-play, 65-yard touchdown drive that only took 1:14. Unfortunately, that 37 seconds left on the clock was too much, as a pair of 20-yard passes got them into field goal range. They spiked the ball with 2 seconds left and kicked the field goal to win this game, and the Broncos became the first team in NFL history to score 33 points or more in the fourth quarter after being shut out through the first 3 quarters. So, epic collapse by the Giants. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the worst losses you'll ever see in NFL history. And it's because the Giants kicker missed 2 extra points, and that's going to be forgotten, and people are just going to talk about the insane scoring that happened down the stretch. But it's this was the game of the year. I mean, the way that they went back and forth. It was 19-8 with I'm trying to get the exact time. I guess there was 10 minutes left and this game was 19-8 with 27 points. It ended with 65. There were 38 points in the last 10 minutes. I don't know what the record is for the last 10 minutes of a game and how many, but it went touchdown, interception, touchdown, punt, touchdown, field goal. And that's with 2 missed extra points in there. Props to Sean Payton for going for 2 on each of his first 2 touchdowns, down 19-0, having the foresight to go for 2, and then down 26-8, having the foresight to go for 2 to get 26-16. That's, every point ended up mattering clearly in this game. So props to Sean Payton, who is still one of the best coaches in football. And I think the evidence of that goes no further than saying the Broncos are 5-2, and you can make an argument that they should be 6-1, right? With the leverage call that happened in that Colts game, you can make an argument that should have went Denver's way. But would you say that the Broncos have, they've been probably a bad offense, right? For the most part?
Yeah.
And then defensively, they've been much worse than they were last year. They gave up 30 to the Giants. They gave up 29 to the Colts. They gave up a lot of points to the Chargers, I remember. And yet, Sean Payton's 5-2, and the Broncos are 5-2. And I haven't felt good about either side of the ball. I think both sides of the ball have probably been disappointing to this point. But who cares? Broncos are 5-2.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going to Los Angeles, where the Indianapolis Colts beat the Chargers 34-24, and the Colts offense is just unstoppable so far this season. They scored on 6 of their first 7 possessions. Daniel Jones was efficient. Jonathan Taylor added almost 100 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. There are consistently wide open receivers everywhere on the football field. If you're an Eagles fan, do not watch a Colts game because it will infuriate you how easy offense is for them. The Chargers were dreadful in the first half. They only had 141 total yards and 2 interceptions, including 1 in the end zone, and it put them in a 20-point hole. They battled back, but it was too little too late, and they end up dropping this one. Mark, here's one for you. Jonathan Taylor is on a heater now. He has 10 rushing touchdowns in his last 5 games, which makes him the first player to rush for 10 touchdowns in 5 games since who?
Saquon?
It's not Saquon.
Is it Jalen?
Running backs.
Running back? Okay, yeah. I'm trying to think why you would ask me, is why I thought those 2 names first.
It's not an Eagle.
Is it Jonathan Taylor?
It is.
Yeah.
He became first player to do it since Jonathan Taylor also did it back in 2021 when I was arguing he should have been the MVP of the league.
That was a good pull. I was trying to figure out the gimmick there.
Yeah, I got to start asking you some that just there's no gimmick. It's he's the first guy to do it since Frank Gore or I don't know.
Clinton Portis. But
Who
I don't know.
who
Honestly,
was the Browns running back that was like crazy for 1 year?
Peyton Hillis.
Peyton Hillis, yeah.
Madden.
Peyton Hillis.
Madden cover Peyton Hillis. But I don't have much to say specifically about this game. Honestly, I was so locked in on Giants, Broncos, and Packers, Cardinals in the 4:00 slate that I was not very attentive to Colts, Chargers. But just a little like Colts or an AFC playoff picture. I think the Bills and the Dolphins are both in.
You mean the Bills and the Patriots?
Bills and the Patriots.
I'm assuming you didn't mean the Dolphins.
Yes, the Dolphins are not in. The Bills and the Patriots.
Mark's predicting a crazy turnaround right now.
The Bills and the Patriots are both in. The Colts are in. The Chiefs are in. Chiefs and Broncos are in. The AFC North winner is in. So that's Pittsburgh, Cincy, or Baltimore. The 7 seed is going to come down, in my opinion, to the Chargers, the Jags, or a second team in the AFC North. My take is the AFC North will only get one playoff team in. There's too many teams that have to play each other with the Bengals and the Steelers and the Ravens, and the records aren't that good as of now. So I think the 7 seed comes down to the Chargers and the Jags, who are both 4-3 right now. Neither of those teams are any good right now, as currently constructed. If I tell you, Shane, one of these two teams make the playoffs, Chargers or the Jags, who are you picking?
All right, I'm not looking at schedules, so I'm not factoring that in. I would say Chargers, because the reason they're not good is injury related. And I think Joe Alt coming back will make a big difference. I just don't see, like, the Jags, I don't see what the answers are. For the Chargers, I see the answer. It's you got to get Joe Alt back and solidify that O-line.
I like it. I think I agree. I think I'm there with you.
Yeah. So, all right.
Oh, and just to finish that thought, if you want my take on the NFC playoff picture, go look at the NFC top 7, who the playoffs would be right now. Those are the 7 teams making the playoffs, in my opinion. Like, I think I don't know if it's not going to be that order, but the Eagles make it out of the East. Green Bay and Detroit make it out of the North. Tampa makes it out of the South. And then San Fran, Detroit, or San Fran, Seattle, and the Rams all make it out of the West. I think those are your playoffs. I think the NFC playoffs are what they are right now. Those top 7 are going to be the top 7 at the end of the year. But yeah, someone commented that my stance on the Chargers is taking a stark drop. They lost their 2 best players. Sean Slater and Joe Alt are their 2 best players. I think on James maybe is also in that conversation. But I think Alt, and I was making the case that Slater, you can make cases a top 3 tackle, probably with Lane and Sewell. And then I think I was saying in the offseason that you can make a case Alt was breaking into the top 5 tackle, which is higher than I have Herbert at quarterback. So technically I think 2 of their 3 best players are out. And not to mention that their first-round pick, Omarion Hampton, who I was really high on, was kind of disappointing until he started to put it together, and then he got hurt and is on the IR now too. So just a nightmare season injury-wise for the Chargers, which is very Chargers.
I ranked tackles this offseason, and I ranked Rashawn Slater as 7th and Joe Alt as 13th.
Okay.
So, and if I was doing them again, I would shuffle things around a little bit, because Andrew Thomas and Laramie Tunsil, I had both of those guys above Slater, and I probably dropped them after
Tunsil that high.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, let's go to the NFC East. We've got Washington traveling to Dallas. Dallas wins 44-22. The Cowboys' offense is unbelievable. They've put up 40, 37, 27, and 44 in their last 4 games. And funnily enough, 2 of those have not ended in wins. This week, it was 44 points against the Commanders. And, the Cowboys' defense is an issue. We saw rumors about them trading for Max Crosby. I don't know. I bet 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark would probably get him a pass rusher. What do you think? Injuries continue to stack up for the Commanders. They were already down Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and Noah Brown. And then Jaden Daniels injured his hamstring in the third quarter, too. Now, apparently this is not going to be a long-term injury, but it is his 2nd injury of the year after he injured the knee earlier on. And so Washington's going to, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now, and just the natural regression that we kind of called was coming. CeeDee Lamb came back after missing, I think it was 3 games with an ankle injury. And he had 110 yards and a touchdown in the first half, and then he didn't get a target in the second half, which was kind of funny. But the Dallas rolls in this one.
The Commanders are 3-7, not 3-4. Let me just break that news to the people, because the Commanders' next 3 games at Kansas City, Seattle, Detroit. I don't think you're beating any of those games, especially not with Jaden Daniels out or banged up. And I think he will be one or the other. So I think that loss to Dallas stick a fork in the Commanders season, in my opinion. I think it's over. I think that this schedule got them. And not to mention, after that, you still have games. You go to Madrid, which you're playing the Dolphins. You should win that game, but you're traveling to Spain. That doesn't help anybody in an NFL season. Then you have a Denver game. You go to Minnesota. You have 2 Eagles games. You have another Dallas game. They just beat the crap out of you. Like, brutal schedule. And you go look at any NFC East team, and you're going to walk away being like, wow, brutal schedule. Because it's the AFC West and the NFC North that we're all playing. So that makes it tough. But this was a must win for Washington. And not only did they not win, but they came into the game really banged up and came out doubly as banged up with the most important person in their organization hurt.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go to Arizona. Green Bay at Arizona. The Packers found themselves in a dogfight against the Cardinals. Nothing was going right on either side of the ball. But in the second half, their defense made some splash plays. Rashawn Gary had a strip sack that led to a Green Bay touchdown. Micah Parsons had 3 sacks, including one in the final minute of the game, as Arizona threatened to retake the lead. He also had 10 pressures. Green Bay ends up winning 27-23. I thought Jacoby Brissett was solid again for the Cardinals. Throws for 279 and 2 touchdowns, but he did take 10, or not 10. He took 6 sacks, and he had that key strip sack. So the Cardinals started 2-0, but they now have 5 straight losses, and all 5 of them came down to the final play of the game. 3 game-winning kicks by opponents as time expired, and 2 throws to the end zone by them that failed. So at least their games are entertaining and close, but Arizona continues to not be able to win football games.
So it's 5 straight losses by a combined 9, 12, by a combined 13 points. That's unbelievable. That has to be a record. I don't think there's ever been a team that's lost 5 straight games by 13 or less points. And then on the other side, I get it. Did Green Bay lose to the Browns? Yeah. Did Green Bay tie the Cowboys? Yeah. Did Green Bay beat the Bengals, but, it never looked pretty? Yeah. Did Green Bay have to come back here and gave up a lot of points to Jacoby Brissett? Yeah. But they're 4-1-1. And the way people are talking about Green Bay, if you look at power rankings, you listen to NFL pods, is like, they're so disappointing, and Jordan Love needs to grow up, and these offense needs to be better, and they still don't have the weapons. If you take out the Browns game, they scored 27, 27, 40, 27, and 27, which is bizarre that they scored 27 in all of their wins. But that's a team that's averaging over 30 points a game because of that 40 in the games if you take out that Browns game. And I understand you can't take out that Browns game. To me, that offensive performance against the Browns seems like a blip on the radar. And that was also a game where that loss was caused in big part because of a blocked field goal returned for a touchdown. But I still think Green Bay is and by the way, Vegas agrees, because if you go to Vegas, Green Bay is still favored to win the NFC. I believe they're tied with Detroit. I haven't checked that recently here, but them and Detroit were still tied to win the conference. And if you were to go listen to NFL podcasts, you would not think that Detroit and Green Bay are even in odds. You'd think Detroit would be a presumptive favorite and Green Bay would be a long shot. But I still believe in Green Bay as one of the best teams in the NFL and a team that could absolutely win the Super Bowl.
The 2-5 Arizona Cardinals have a -1 point differential. The 5-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the same point differential. The 5-2 Eagles have a +5 point differential. That's just crazy how many close games they've lost like that.
Someone said, Bright Eclipse said, he's not taking shots. It's the second year in a row that I've hyped up Green Bay coming into the season and met with a lot of disappointment. To be fair, Jordan Love literally sprained his MCL on the Brazilian grass, which was not prepared last year in week 1 after playing fantastic against the Eagles. They lost that game to the eventual Super Bowl champions on a neutral field where I think they lost by a 1-possession game. And then their quarterback got hurt at the end of the game. So I'd say that was the reason that they probably disappointed to start last year. And saying all that, what did they win, 12 games last year? So I think they still had, or 11 games maybe? They still had a pretty darn good season.
Yeah, they went 11-6.
11-6, yeah.
Ironically, they
4-1.
lost the opener with Love, won back-to-back games with Willis, and then Love came back and they lost the first game he was back.
Yeah, and he came back way too soon, I remember. And because I remember they were horrible for the first. Was that Minnesota or
Minnesota?
Yeah, it was Minnesota. He rushed back for. I remember that.
He did throw for almost 400 yards in that game.
Yeah, well, it was a little bit. I think the Vikings might have got up by like 3 touchdowns in that game. What was the final score?
It was 31-29, but they were down. They were down 28-7 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I remember that game vividly. I think I bet Green Bay in that game, and yeah, they were down huge, and Love kind of just threw for 1 billion yards to get them back in the game. But Green Bay, I would not say being 4-1-1 after 6 weeks is disappointing. Personally.
All right, let's get into Sunday Night Football then. Arizona at San Francisco. Mark, is Christian McCaffrey a running back again? He finally had a good rushing game. I've talked about that he's been really good as a receiver, but done nothing as a rusher. He was 24 for 129 and 2 touchdowns in this game as a runner. That didn't mean he wasn't active as a receiver. He had 7 catches for 72 yards. And so he was just a one-man offense for a team missing their top 2 wide receivers, their starting quarterback, and who just got George Kittle back, but he had 0 catches. This was his 7th career game with 100 or more rushing yards and 70 or more receiving yards, breaking a tie with Marshall Faulk and Priest Holmes for the most such games. So, incredible performance by McCaffrey. And then on the flip side for the Falcons, coming off of insane performances against the Bills last week, both Bijan Robinson and Drake London came back down to earth. Robinson only had 40 rushing yards. I mean, he did have 52 receiving yards and a touchdown, but London only had 42 yards. Like Brett Eclipse said here, the Falcons flip a coin before every game to decide how well they want to play. You just never have any idea. Michael Penix was 21 of 29 for 241 and a touchdown when kept clean, and he was 0 of 9 when pressured. Pressure Penix, you win the game.
I don't bet on Falcons games for the exact reason that comment said. I have no idea what to expect. When I was talking to Anthony DeBundo on Saturday, I told him that through 5 games, I don't know if I've ever had less of an idea of what a team is than the Falcons going into this game on Sunday night. I didn't bet Sunday Night Football, and San Fran figured it out. And I'm just going to give San Fran credit here because they're 5-2, and they beat Atlanta. They beat the LA Rams on the road. They beat Arizona early in the year when they were 2-0. They found a way to win in Seattle. And what that allows now, they're a hospital squad. They don't have Fred Warner. They don't have Bosa. Purdy having one of the weirdest seasons in NFL history, being in and out and in and out and in and out of the lineup. It's like Michael Scott, I should say, snip, snap, but with Brock Purdy being in and out. But what it does set up San Fran for is now we talked in the preseason about how easy the San Fran schedule could be. Mm-hmm. You've got at Houston, at the Giants, the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Browns, the Titans. There's a lot of really winnable games on the schedule left over for San Fran here. So I understand they're banged up. I think we'll see more games like this, more 20-10, 20-13, 17-13 type wins from Shanahan, just kind of guts and guiling his way there. And props to Saleh for coming up with a great game plan here without his top 2 defenders. And I kind of expect more of the same down the stretch for Saleh. So San Fran actually, like, very much, if you look at the division odds, pretty much even for all 3 teams. Seattle's slightly behind the Rams and San Fran, but you'd think, I think, with the injuries that maybe it's LA and Seattle and then San Fran below them. But due to their schedule, the odds have them right with those teams. So I think you can probably pencil in San Fran for the playoffs, even with the injuries.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the Monday night games, dual Monday night games. First up was Tampa Bay at Detroit. I didn't get to watch this game super closely.
Wow. Timeout. My last time out of the show.
You said you were out earlier.
Thunder just had like a 6-point deficit with like 2.5 minutes to go. I looked down, and then I looked back up. The Thunder just took a 1-point lead with 1.5 to go. So look at Shane's Thunder on ring ceremony night.
Yeah, they'll do that to you.
Unbelievable.
All right. Well, I didn't get to watch a lot of. I kind of got to see a little bit of it, but I didn't get to watch a lot of the Tampa-Detroit game. But I would just like to make a public apology because for 10 years since his rookie season, hundreds of defensive backs and dozens of defensive coordinators have tried to stop Mike Evans. And every year for the last decade, Mike Evans just put up 1,000 receiving yards anyways. And I didn't know this at the time, but I decided to start fantasy football for the first time in like 6 or 7 years again this year. And I selected Mike Evans with a draft pick. And I didn't realize the power that I had to end that streak. I did what hundreds of defensive backs could not. I drafted him, and the streak is over. Because unfortunately, after missing several games with an injury, he came back and now broke a clavicle and will miss a large portion of the rest of the year. So my biggest thing for this game is just it's been tremendous bad luck for the Buccaneers with injuries this year. We talked about them drafting Emeka Egbuka and was like, how are you drafting another receiver? You got so many receivers, and they can't keep receivers on the field. And I hate that for Mike Evans. That was like my favorite stat in sports. I love that guy. So hopefully he's able to come back. And, hey, maybe we'll start another 10-year streak next year. But rough game for Baker. Awesome game for Jahmyr Gibbs. But I don't necessarily really have a lot of takeaways because I didn't get to keep a super close eye on this one other than just saying, man, I really hope the Bucs can get healthy at some point. You're muted.
This was just a clear kind of Vegas knew before the game on this one. The line was 6.5, and I bet Tampa plus 6.5 and said on my show basically like, this is a dumb bet. I shouldn't make it. I know what I'm walking into. This is what I call a rat trap bet. But I had to make it. It was, if I'm just going off of my power rankings, Tampa was too good of a team to be a 6.5-point dog. But we talked about it so often. We praised them for overcoming the injuries. They caught up to you. All the injuries and all the close wins. Eventually, you're not going to be able to rely on a game being close at the end. So I think that this bill was probably due for Tampa, and it came against a team that was ready to kind of give them the belt on at home on Monday Night Football in a primetime spot in a way that Detroit, if you look at how they do in primetime spots, they're pretty fantastic generally. I guess they did just lose one recently to Kansas City. But yeah, they make sure that every national media, every pundit, every talking head opens every Monday show or Tuesday show or whatever it is talking about how the Lions are the best team in football because that, and man, if you got awards for being number one, if you got like Super Bowl trophies and Lombardis for being number one in weekly power rankings on websites, man, the Lions would be more successful than the Eagles. Luckily, it comes down to actually winning the Super Bowl, and that's something that the Lions can't do. So that's my tidbit. I hate the Lions. I got to tell you, I can't remember like how Shane felt about the 49ers and how a lot of Eagles fans felt about the 49ers. I always was like, yeah, if my team's quarterback got hurt in a championship, I'd probably be a bit whiny about it too. I don't know the last time I've hated a non-rival in any sport the way I hate the Lions and the way that the Lions get treated. I've never seen anything like it. Having said all that, they deserve it after this one. This was a big win. They deserve all the praise this Tuesday at least. But it was crickets after they lost to the Chiefs because, of course, it was.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the other game, which I did not watch because NFL games starting at 10 p.m. is stupid. Houston loses to Seattle in Seattle 27-19. I did not watch this game. I did not have time to go back and dig into it today, so I actually don't have any takeaways from this one. But Mark, did you stay up and watch this one?
Yes, this was my bet of the year, Shane. This was my biggest bet of the season, which replaced my other biggest bet of the season, which I was either week 2 or week 3 in a different doubleheader on Monday Night Football where Tampa played Houston on Monday night. I bet Tampa and they beat Houston, and now replace that with my other bet of the year. So 2-0 and bet of the years, both being against the Houston Texans. And guess what? My best bet for next week is against the Houston Texans. Vegas cannot adjust their power rankings. Vegas still thinks the Texans are good. They have not figured out that they have the worst offensive line in football, and that CJ Stroud, whether it's related to CJ Stroud regressing or if it's just purely that O-line is absolutely terrible. I don't understand. Just going through Houston's results here. Let's look at their regular season games. They opened the year playing the LA Rams. They were only a 3-point dog in that game. They did not cover. They lost that game. I bet the Rams in that game. Easy win. They come back next week. They're a favored against Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football. They lose that game to Tampa. All right, it was a close game. You come back to next week. They're favored in Jacksonville against the Jags. They road favorite as an 0-2 team. They lose that game. And then they came out. They beat the Titans, who we now know are the worst team in football. And they beat the crap out of Cooper Rush, who is not an NFL quarterback. And that happened, and all of a sudden, Seattle is a home team against Houston. And so this is incorrect. When I was growing up and I first learned about what spreads were, it was actually the Philadelphia Inquirer. They sent out a newspaper, and in the parentheses, they had these helmets. They had all the matchups, and it was just the helmets. And next to the helmets, there's a little parentheses, and it said -3.5. I never understood what that meant. Eventually, I asked my dad. He explained it to me. And what he explained to me at the time was it's supposed to be a 6-point swing based on home or away. So let's say if the NFL thinks, or if Vegas thinks two teams are even, let's say they think let's say last week they thought the Eagles and Vikings were even. If that game was in Philly, that would be an Eagles -3 line. If that game was in Minnesota, that would be a Vikings -3 line. I think I've heard now that that's actually more like 4. Home field matters a little less now in the gambling markets than it did 15, 20 years ago. But take it for full granted. Are Seattle and Houston close to equal teams, Shane?
No, not even close.
It made no sense that Seattle was -3. And
Houston is bad. They're just not a very good football team.
They're a bottom 10 team in the NFL.
They've got a good defense.
They do. A fine defense. And Seattle, even with 3 turnovers, won this game going away. With a -3 turnover margin, this game was never in doubt. Never close. And having said that, this makes me revisit my final point, and this could be my final thought as well. They go hand in hand here. From last week, and I'm going to put in a bet. I have to look at the markets. I think Seattle is every bit of a Super Bowl contender. I think they're right. I think there's a clear top 6 in the NFC. I don't think San Fran can win the Super Bowl. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think they're going to win a lot of regular season games. But the other 6 NFC teams, Philadelphia, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa, the Rams, and Seattle, I think very little separates 1 through 6 of however you want to rank those 6 teams. I think all 6 teams have a chance. But if you look at the gambling odds, 5 of those teams have really, good odds to win the conference. And Seattle is like double whoever the lowest is of those. To me, Seattle is right with those top 5 teams. You have a defense with a ton of young guys breaking out, good pass rush, good secondary, great defensive coach. You have an offensive coordinator who's going to be a head coach next year in Clint Kubiak. The running game has barely even gotten going, which is his specialty. You have Darnold playing his best football even more than last year. JSN looks like the best receiver on the planet. I think Seattle has everything you could want in a contender. I think Seattle's a true contender.
All right. Well, there you have it. Mark making a prediction. Maybe you go check out some of the odds on the Seahawks. Yeah, I think the NFC is a complete toss-up. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I certainly think any of those teams are a possibility. They've all got their issues. That's the thing. You're banking on who's able to troubleshoot. And having a play caller on the opposite side of the ball as what your head coach is doing, who is a candidate to be a head coach next year, is a definite step up there over what a lot of the other teams have. So we'll see how it plays out. Ultimately, the season is still young as we wrap up week 7 here. Approaching the halfway point, though, Mark, and I still have no idea who is good in the NFL. I resist violently the notion the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl again, because I can't say that. Somebody's going to take them down. Let's go Birds. That is going to about do it for this episode, number 208 of Chalk Talk. If you enjoy what you heard on the show, and we know that you do, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Whether we go live Tuesday night, Monday morning, whatever, you'll get the notifications there. Drop us a 5-star rating wherever you stream your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHalfNFL. Mark is on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. NFL. And we will catch you guys next time.